Well, welcome to the High Vibration Living Podcast, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm obsessed with all of your work and I can't wait to dive in and chat.
Thank you. Well, like I was chatting with you before, you've been in the health and wellness and life coach space for a really long time. And as women, we are kind of in it from the get-go, right? Because we're always looking on to how to take care of ourselves and optimize ourselves and kind of like fit into different boxes so we can, perform in whatever way that we think we need to perform. So I just want to know like what you're really into right now, like what's really lighting you up. Where is
So my main focus as a coach has always been around supporting clients in finding food and body freedom. So learning to eat intuitively based on their body's hunger and fullness cues, ditching diet culture, and just getting back to a place where they're really in tune with their body and really existing from a space that we're not taught to exist from as women when it comes to food and eating. Because diet culture is so strong and because we're seeing constantly so many images through social media and media in general that at a subconscious level and a conscious level shift how we see ourselves and perceive how we should be. Yeah. I think for a lot of women, our relationship with our body and food becomes complicated at a very young age. Like a lot of the women that I work with can think back to a time in childhood when they were 6, 7, 8, 9 years old and they were bullied about their weight, or somebody made a comment about the way that they look. And that stuck with them and shifted the way that they've moved through the world from that point on. And so I think most likely every single woman who's listening to this right now could tell you a story that she has in relation to her own body, could tell you about a diet that she's tried or a cleanse that she tried, could tell you or would tell you that she feels like she's not doing enough for her own health and wellness. Like there's this laundry list of things that we should be doing to optimize our performance these days. It becomes exhausting and it can become very difficult to know what's working or what's not working. So in my work, one of the things that I love supporting women with the most is how do you reconnect back with your unique individual body that has a different biochemistry than everybody else, to listen to the signals that it's giving you so that you can determine what you need and when. For example, somebody who is struggling with binge eating or emotional eating, which is probably the most common type of woman that I work with, they may think that they need to get control over the food that they're eating. Because if you've ever binge eat, have you ever experienced a binge or emotional eating?
In my 20s. Yeah.
Okay.
Because of restriction. And
Yes.
what I found too, and this is what kind of led me into a real spiritual space with food, is it would only happen on the full moon and new moon.
Oh, interesting.
So it was only happening in this 2-day window connected to the full moon and new moon. And it had a lot to do with food restriction. And as soon as I did the spiritual work to figure out what it is I was connected to moonwise, and spiritually and past life, and I stopped any food restriction, it's like it never happened. That feels. And so for anyone that's having issues with food right now, I can tell you, like, that feels like a lifetime ago. Like, I can't even remember that because it's so far in my past now because it's so healed.
Well, so many women have experienced that same thing, especially in your 20s. It seems to kind of run rampant.
Yeah.
And when you're experiencing it, it feels like you have no discipline around food. You might eat really clean during the day, and then all of a sudden at night or in the afternoon, it's like this force comes over you and you're just going to eat whatever's in your path, usually the food you've told yourself you can't have. And it creates this spiral of then so much shame and negative self-talk and feeling guilty. And most people then say like, okay, tomorrow I'm eating clean, or tomorrow I start fresh, or tomorrow I'm starting the cleanse. What you said is so important, that the number one thing that causes binge eating is restriction. And restriction, like every single diet is a form of restriction. So at some point we are on this path and we begin to dislike our body or want to change a part of ourselves. And diet culture in our society is like, perfect, here's a diet to try. Restrict carbs or restrict fats or whatever. And so we do that and it works for a bit. There's no doubt about it. Like, people will lose weight. We've seen the before and after pictures. Your body will change, but it's not sustainable. And the challenge is that the restriction actually causes our body to move into a space where we're far more vulnerable to binge eating, emotional eating, and just completely disconnecting from our hunger and fullness cues, to be honest. Because now we've tied up what we're eating and when we're eating with all these rules, like, I don't eat this type of food, or I only eat between 12 and 6 p.m. All of that restriction is actually what is causing the binge eating. So one of the first things I'll work with clients is like, we've got to stop the restriction, which can feel very scary for a binge eater or emotional eater, because they're like, if I stop restricting, I'm just going to eat all the things. I'll gain endless weight and my skin will start breaking out and I'll just never stop eating the food that I'm eating, which couldn't be further from the truth. But it can feel really good to have support around it, obviously. So all of this is my life's work. It's what I'm so passionate about because I've spent so many years in that space myself. And I know how much stress and havoc it wreaks on not only your physical well-being, but also your confidence and self-esteem. It's very complicated because a lot of the things that we deem as being healthy and that we call wellness can actually become very disordered depending on the intention that is behind it, depending on how your body reacts to it. So another example of this that doesn't have anything to do with intuitive eating is cold plunging. I know for me, as somebody who tends to run a bit more anxious, that sometimes cold plunging can be incredible. It is like, I feel my mind clear. I feel my nervous system move out of fight, flight and into rest, digest. Cold plunging really works for me in the summer months when it's warmer. But in the winter in Vancouver, it is cold and rainy and damp. And I'm a long and lean individual, doesn't have a ton of body mass. And with my body type, going in cold water in that type of environment, I end up getting sick. Like my body's not in a space to be able to handle that. With cold plunging as well, if you are a female, there are certain types of your cycle where it can be doing more harm than good. And so I think what I'm saying is if we are not in tune with our body, if we are not able to listen to the cues of our body, then we're constantly sourcing external wisdom from other individuals about what works for their body, and it might not be right for us. So the first thing we have to do is come home to our body and start to listen to the signals, start to tune into hunger and fullness, start to tune into energy levels, start to tune into somatic blocks that may be happening in our body. And from there, we can really tune into a whole new level of vitality and wellness.
And I completely agree with you with the cold plunge. So I do a cold plunge when I, as a chef, have worked like a 14-hour day. And I find it's the only thing that gets the puffiness and inflammation out of my body and just makes all my joints and fingers and arms and everything feel good again. Yeah. It just resets me after overusing my body, which is not something I should do very often. And so I only cold plunge when I need to bring my body back to balance. And it's probably just like 5 or 6 times a year that I go and do it. It's not a regular thing because my body doesn't need it regularly. It only needs it when it's out of balance. So I'm a big fan of just because everyone's doing it doesn't mean that you need to jump on board. Everything is so unique to who you are and the season that you're in.
Absolutely. And we can't talk about this stuff without acknowledging that most people can't afford to get a $5,000 cold plunge in their backyard, or they don't have access to a creek like I do 2 minutes away. So Another thing that I think is important to remember when it comes to health and wellness is there's no one thing that's going to be this magic pill or this magic answer.
Yeah.
It's not like you can't be well if you don't have access to a cold plunge. There are so many tools out there, practices and resources. And with this can come a lot of overwhelm where we almost just don't do anything. So I like to remind people as well that there are 3 main basic things that we can be doing for our body that don't cost anything or don't cost any more, and
Yeah.
that most people could still be improving or working on or leaning into in a different way. The first thing is sleep. We need sleep in order to repair, in order for our brain to be working optimally, in order for us to have energy. I think now we're really moving into a moment where sleep is appreciated. People are spending more time making sure that their sleep environment is set up for success, and we're starting to prioritize it, which is great, because 20 years ago, it was like you were praised if you could sleep 4 hours a night and just hustle and burn the candle at both ends. The sleep is number one, really tuning into and prioritizing sleep. Then, of course, looking at the food that you're putting into your body. We don't have to become obsessive over this and count calories or macros. We don't have to all abide by one food philosophy. Like, not everyone's going to be vegan and not everyone's going to be eating the meatballs that are trending right now. There's a happy medium in there. But noticing which foods give you energy, which foods make you feel gassy. Is there a certain type of food where you all of a sudden start breaking out? Those are all signs that your body is giving you. It's the way that your body communicates with you to let you know what's working for you, which is unique to you and your body, and what's not working. So tuning into that and noticing and then making subtle shifts. There's so much that we can do with diet to support our wellness. The same goes for the timing that you're eating. For some people, intermittent fasting will feel like it's really working. That's not generally what I prescribe for my clients working with emotional eating. That's not the route that I would go at all. For some people, it will work. For other people, 3 square meals a day is great. Other people need like 5 smaller meals. So really noticing what's right for you and remembering that you have permission to eat that way, and you have permission in general to eat. It's really necessary for your body, mind, and soul. So sleep, the food that we're eating, and then moving our body. And a lot of people aren't doing those 3 as half as well as they could be.
Yeah.
Moving your body does not have to be going to the gym 5 days a week and running on a treadmill and pumping iron. You can do a 20-minute Melissa Wood series. You can go for a walk in the forest. And for a lot of us who have higher cortisol, those more gentle forms of exercise are actually what our body needs in order to relax and replenish and move out of that fight-flight state.
Yeah. Well, during the summer months, I feel like people who are still struggling with binge eating or restrictive eating tend to get a little scared because there's more play food, right? It's the season of ice cream and popsicles and, faster food and carnivals and fairs. Do you have any tips for your clients that are trying to start intuitive eating at this time of year?
Such a great question. This time of year can be really triggering for people in general, because along with all that food comes bathing suits, shorts, short sleeve tops. So if you're struggling with your body image in general, probably a lot of things are being lit up at this time. I have a free webinar. I'll give you the link to it so people can watch it, with 5 steps to end emotional eating. What I find tricky about this conversation is there's not just one thing that you can all of a sudden do to stop the binge eating. But what I would invite people to consider who are struggling with this is that it is not your fault that you're doing this. You have been fed stories for as long as you've been alive that your body is wrong, that there's something wrong with you, that you need to look different in order to find love or happiness or success. And our greatest need as human beings is to fit in and belong. And so it's not your fault that most likely at some point you tried to restrict or tried to diet, because again, that's really glamorized in our society. And oftentimes people have mothers who are constantly on a diet. It's not your fault that you are experiencing this. And yet it is up to you in order to start to make the changes. So being so gentle with yourself and recognizing this is a symptom of a much larger societal issue at hand. It's not because you don't have discipline or that you just can't figure it out. Like, you have been served a program, a system, a solution that is designed to fail. 98% of diets fail. 70% of people will gain back the weight that they lost plus more within 2 years of completing their diet. So the system doesn't work. I would recommend, if you have the means, to get some support or to work with somebody who does know how to get you back to a space where your relationship with food is a lot more healthy. To be honest, I recommend this with anything in life. Like, if you want to be a better public speaker, I would recommend working with a public speaking coach. If you want to be a better chef, I would recommend working with a chef. And it doesn't mean you have to pay a whole bunch of money, but surround yourself with those people, with those voices, with their content. Make sure that you're following along, like follow Raw Beauty Talks, listen to my podcast, listen to Whitney's show. Really infuse these conversations, this dialogue into your everyday life. It's so important. If you're only hanging out with people who are dieting, watching what they're eating, drinking Diet Coke, and talking about macros and intermittent fasting, it's going to be very hard for you to break free from all of that. I think another piece that comes to mind as well is that there can be a lot of fear about leaving diet culture behind, because it's like, if I don't diet, again, there's this huge fear of gaining weight in our society. There's massive fat stigma. And so what I want to say there is, first of all, gaining weight is totally normal. Our bodies we're not robots made out of metal. Like, the body is going to ebb and flow and shift and change in various different seasons of our life over and over again. So we cannot grip tightly to a specific number on the scale and expect that we'll always be able to stay there. It's too rigid. There's no joy in life in living from that place. The other thing I want to say is that your body wants to be healthy. Your body wants to thrive. It is on your team. So if you're in tune with your hunger and fullness levels, and if you are metabolizing past trauma, working through that and releasing energetic blocks in your body. If you are in tune with your emotions, oh wait, I'm actually just feeling lonely right now, I'm not actually hungry, then your body is going to thrive. Like, not only is it just going to be okay, it's going to thrive. Your skin's going to get healthy. Your hair's going to start growing. Your weight will land at what we call your happy weight, where, it's probably going to ebb or flow up and down 5-8 pounds, somewhere in that range is very normal. But you'll be able to just eat what you want to eat without constantly gripping to all these rules and rigidity. And that's where true health and vitality lives. It's not in a space of fear and restriction. So those would be my two main points, is that it's not your fault. Find somebody who can support you along the way, and trust that your body wants to heal and it's on your team.
I know when we are really burnt out at work or with our life or with our routine, it's harder for us to fuel ourselves well. It's harder for us to make healthy choices or just like figure out even what we want to eat, because we're just so wiped. How do we approach burnout? Like, how do we continue to show up for all of these obligations that we have on our calendar or for our job when like our cup is empty?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, I can say a few things about burnout because it's my favorite cycle to exist from, but I'm really trying to break the cycle, break the pattern. I will speak about my experience first. So I'm very driven. I have a clear vision of where it is that I want to be. And I was recently diagnosed with inattentive ADHD, which I think has been a huge blessing. Not the diagnosis, but the fact that my brain works the way that it works has allowed me to dream up a lot of really cool ideas and get started on a lot of really cool ideas. It also means that I have a tendency to bite off more than I can chew, because my mind doesn't think about like all the 1,700 steps that will be required in order to get to that vision. I just jump and then I'm in it. And as we all know, like once you're in it and you're committed and you have a team and there's deadlines approaching, it feels virtually impossible to get out of it. Now, I have had moments after my daughter was born, for example. I did my first big launch for my food freedom program, and I was breastfeeding her up all night. Like I had a 2-year-old son at the time. I burnt out so hard that I had to refund $60,000 back to people who were halfway through the food freedom program because I hit the ground so hard. My mental health just shattered. Like there was no moving forward or pushing through. So that was an incredibly painful period of time for many reasons. But it taught me a lot about the warning signals of when I'm headed back in that direction. So I know for me that the first signs are always physical. My body starts to show physical signs that it is not its strongest. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. You start getting sick more frequently. More recently, I got a UTI, and the first round of antibiotics didn't work. We tried the second round of antibiotics. So like if there's a bacterial infection, the first round didn't kill that bacteria. We did the second round. It got rid of it to a point, but it was still kind of lingering. And then I got bronchitis. So it's like, okay, this is my body letting me know the immune system is tapping out. I am on the edge. This is where I start to like the warning signs go off that it's time to peel back everything out of my calendar that doesn't need to happen immediately. Also at that point, I reached out to some of my closest friends. There was a number of things going on with my nonprofit. I had my food freedom group, my one-on-ones. My daughter got diagnosed with celiac and we were moving. So there was just like a perfect storm of a lot of things happening. And I called my friends and I was like, I need help and I need help now. And so all of a sudden, for one of the events that we were planning, onboarded a number of people. They crushed it. Did they do it exactly how I would have done it? No. But this is a work in kind of letting go of our perfectionism and our need for control over things. So then what I noticed for myself, and the reason I'm sharing this is because I think many people have a similar experience. The physical signs start showing up, whether it's the infections, the colds. I got shingles one time. Eczema on my eye right now is kind of a thing. Then my mind starts to go. And so what I mean by that is a lot of anxious thoughts, a lot of fear-based thoughts start coming in. Now, that might be limiting beliefs about myself or my capacity to continue moving the ball forward. Or it might come up as critical thinking about how I'm showing up as a mom. You know, I'm not a good enough mom, and I'm not doing this well. And what if I screw up my kids? It might show up as not being able to fall asleep at night because the mind is turning and twisting. I also have a program called the Anxiety Reset. And so what I recognize now is those are all symptoms of a dysregulated, burnt out system. Mm-hmm. And so the invitation becomes, how do I nourish and regulate the system? So I knew there were a couple of key end dates that we had to get through, including the move. And then after that, we booked 10 days off on an island, vacation time. That vacation time, I found it really difficult the first couple of days to unwind and disconnect from the computer and things. But within a couple of days, my routine looked like waking up, getting in the ocean, doing like a ocean cold plunge, doing a meditation, and moving my body. Every morning was, whether it was with my kids or alone, depending on whether grandma and grandpa were around, was all about like nourishing myself, fueling my body, following my golden guidelines for eating and nourishing your body. And then the afternoon was play and rest and eating good food and hanging out with friends and just like rolling in the sand with my kiddos and keeping my feet on the earth, like a dream, basically. And I came back from that just feeling like a whole another person. So not everyone can take an epic vacation, but everybody can and has to get a little bit better at delegating, letting go of perfectionism, scheduling in time for joy and play and replenishment. If you are in a season that is just perpetually a grind, I think there has to be a moment of pause and to reflect on whether it's really worth it, because the body keeps score, and you can push and you can push and you can push, but at some point there will be a breakdown. There will be a requirement to stop. And the longer you wait, the longer that recovery takes.
When do you think someone should reach out to a life coach so they can rebalance their schedule, or they know they need to reprioritize their schedule because it's not leading them to their true dream life? Are those good enough reasons to reach out to a life coach, or are there other times that we should be reaching out to somebody to help us navigate or pivot?
I mean, those are incredible times to reach out to a coach if you're feeling a lot of overwhelm in your life, constantly in fight, flight, and not able to show up in a calm, grounded way. Of course, there's moments for all of us where it's going to feel stressful. But if your baseline isn't where you want it to be at, that's a great time. If you know that you are not walking the path in alignment with your life's purpose, and you don't even know what your purpose is, but you just know something is off, you sense it, that's a great time to reach out. I have been working with coaches since I was 23. I'm the biggest advocate for it. It's why I became a coach myself. I've done a lot of therapy as well, and I still have a therapist that I'll check in with here and there. What I love about coaches is it's very focused on kind of the present moment, what's going on right now, and where do you want to be, and how do we bridge the gap from point A to point B. In therapy, we spend a lot of time in the past and doing healing work that is absolutely required in order to find freedom and to kind of move forward. But a lot of people do therapy for a long time, and they're like, okay, like I've talked it all out, but I still don't feel like I'm moving in the direction that I want to, or I still am engaging in these habits that are a form of self-sabotage. So the coaching is really the next step, or works well in conjunction with therapy, as to how do we get you moving forward and what are the right steps to take in the right order. So a good coach should provide support, a system, and accountability to help you get from where you are to where you want to be.
Accountability was huge for me. I hired an accountability coach. So I would start to take action every day to create the life I wanted, or to move towards my dreams, because I was stuck in a place where all I could do was talk about what I wanted, and I didn't know how to get started. Because I'm like you, I can see the vision, I can see the end goal, but I can't figure out the 50 million steps in between. And, you have to get moving if you ultimately want to get to that destination. And there's nothing like
take the steps. Yeah.
And, and we all do better when we have community. And sometimes we just have to find or pay for the right person to support us in moving us forward.
It's the best investment that you could ever make, the investment in yourself. Women have a really tough time making that investment, because we're like, we should spend it here, or we should this, or my kids have to go to camp, or I'm just going to buy this pair of cute jeans because that feels like easier. But I can truly say that my time working with coaches has been the most life-changing work that I've ever done. And if you look at where I was 15, 20 years ago, compared to where I am now and what I've manifested in my life. Like, I did a vision board when I was about 23 years old. My husband and I he was my boyfriend at the time, we'd split up. But everything on that board has actualized and like just so far beyond what I could have imagined. I know manifestation is such a hot topic right now, and I love it. Like, I love visualization and getting yourself in alignment with the things that you want to welcome into your life. I believe in it because I've experienced it myself and seen how it's transformed my life. But a lot of people are doing the visualization and then they're not matching or pairing the actions behind that, because either they're too overwhelmed, or they're not sure what the first step is, or their own limiting beliefs are getting in the way of them being able to move forward. Like, they're not starting to create the social media videos because they're worried about what their friend Jack is going to think, or, whether their friends will judge them. or they don't feel like they're that great of a public speaker, or they don't have the right background yet on their phone, or they're not sure how they'll be able to afford it and figure out their scheduling and their time. Like, this is all stuff that people can help you with and can support you in figuring out.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier for me to work with clients and supporting them on that vision because I'm not attached in the same way emotionally. So I can see very logically and systematically the next steps. And then I can support you in unblocking the limiting beliefs that are holding you back and regulating the nervous system so that you're able to operate from a space of just trust, a deeper trust in yourself, in your body. And
Christina Rice, also known as Christina the Channel, when we were talking about manifestation and vision board, she also reminded me that you have to make sure you have space in your life for that to even come in. So if you're overscheduling yourself in order to make those things happen, but there's no wiggle room or space for things to come in because you're pushing instead of like being. And like as women, we struggle to receive. Yeah. And it's the same thing is we're giving, and we don't take a moment to just let the universe give to us. So we're not even creating space to receive our dreams because we've overscheduled every part of our day.
It's like, can you clear the runway so that the plane can land?
Right? So it's like you dream of a vacation, but you don't ever schedule, or you've created a business that doesn't allow for you to take a vacation.
Right.
You know, you dream of being invited to a certain type of event on a Friday night, but you've booked up all your Friday nights. So no one, even if someone gave you the invitation, you couldn't attend. So that's like an interesting practice that I've been thinking a lot about recently because I'm ready to create a new vision board. Like I'm ready for kind of a fresh vision.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about putting that together. And then I have to reflect, like, you know, what does my week look like? Do I even allow for those opportunities to come in?
I heard Valeria Poletsky. I never know how to say her last name. She has a podcast called Not Alone that I was listening to. And she was saying how she had a vision board and she was doing manifesting and stuff. And she's just in this new phase of life where she's like, I feel like I should do my next vision board, but I'm feeling a lot of resistance towards it. And like, I just maybe need to be in flow with life and the magic of life. And for me, that rung so true, where I feel like I should create the next vision board, but I also just at this point feel such a deep trust in the flow of life and intuition and what's coming that it doesn't feel necessary, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, because I've been there for a long time. I haven't had one probably all year. And now I'm like, you know what? I need to remind myself of the images. I need to physically put in front of me my dreams and the joys and the beauty that I want to have in my life every day. I just need to put it back up there to reignite and have faith again that it's coming to me. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
It's already there, though, is the reality. So if you need the pictures to remind you to look at the life that you have right now and to find those moments of joy and peace and like the mini vacations that you can have throughout the day, then go for it. Do it. Create the board. It's inspiring. They're beautiful to look at and they're fun. And remember that everything on that board in some way, shape, or form already exists within you and in your current life. We forget to look. Like we're looking for the big vacation and we forget to just block off a Sunday morning and to go get a latte and go sit down at the beach and to take that little mini vacation. Or we want the big, exciting Friday night, but we forget, like we have a best friend who would love to go out with us to the new restaurant, and it's right there. So create the vision board, but then remember to look for pieces of how that vision board already exists in your life. I think that's so important because what we pay attention to grows. I wouldn't have understood what I'm saying right now 20 years ago. If I'd said it, I would have been like, no, I'm living in a studio apartment, totally broke. I don't have any of the things that I want right now. But you do, is there. We have to shift the mindset. and start looking for.
Do you have any tips for shifting mindset? Is there a meditation that you really enjoy doing right now, or an affirmation or a reminder that you put around your house that helps you with your mindset?
I mean, there's so many meditations that I do, and I try to meditate every day, doing a body scan, then mindfulness of breath. And last but not least, I'll do a compassion meditation. I think one thing that I've been repeating to myself a lot is everything that's happened was meant to happen this way because it didn't happen any other way. So just really reminding myself that I am exactly where I am meant to be. It didn't happen any other way. So like, this is where I'm supposed to be in order to continue to evolve and grow as a human being. Everything that I've been given, the difficult times, the good times, the beauty, the pain, like it's all there for me, happening for me, not to me. So there's some sense of peace and relaxation that comes with that to me.
Yeah.
In that I don't have to constantly be striving or performing in the same way. I'm just allowed to be as I am in this moment. I also will often put my hand on my heart and I'll say the words, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be free from suffering. And I'll say that to myself. I'll say that to others. I definitely am more of a sensitive person. So with a lot of what's happening around the world, it can become very overwhelming and I can move into quite an anxious or depressed state if I go down the tunnel and I see the children in other areas of the world, and the war and the environmental crisis. And so a practice my meditation teacher, Michelle Campbell, has taught me is that you do your hand on your heart and you send them the prayer, may you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be free from suffering. And you imagine a warm yellow light extending from your body to theirs. And then you send that same prayer back to yourself. And then we get back to living our life, which is our reality. Because I could certainly get very lost in everything that's happening over there. But that energy, if I'm existing from a depressed, anxious state, like it's not helping anybody, including myself. So how do I keep my vibration and my energy high? I send that loving prayer. I send that yellow, warm light. Of course, you donate, you do what you can in addition to that. But then like you have to move through your life and continue to live your life as well.
Yeah, everyone needs to just start to build their tool belt with these little free practices that can set them free in times of mental turmoil. I think that's the most important thing. And I think that's like the greatest tool of podcasts is sharing with people all these little free tools that you can take the ones that resonate with you and apply them in those down moments. So like I like to go for a walk without a cell phone. Just like I go for long walks in nature or at the beach and I don't carry anything, no tech on me. I like to remind myself of certain sayings like the universe is conspiring in my favor. And I just say that over and over again until I feel it and reminded, and the wind will hit just right to remind me that the universe is conspiring in my favor and it's all going to work out for my greatest and highest good. Just little things like, meditation practices and, ripping something out of a magazine that you just need to start seeing every day in order to lift you up. I just think, whether you need to write it in your notes app or just take a mental note, we all have to start filling our tool belt with these free ways to keep us mentally free.
And our connection to spirit or God, whatever that is for you, is incredibly important in regards to our health and wellness as well. So I love what you're doing. I love that you're holding space for these conversations and inviting people to pick up tools and practices and mantras and sayings and prayer that can support them, because life comes with pain. It comes with suffering. That is inevitable. It is part of being a human. And we don't have to push it away. We don't have to try and avoid it and live in like an endlessly happy bubble, because that's just not reality. But it does feel nice to have things to lean on to help ground you, to help center you. And I think that's what spirituality and religion provides.
Yeah. Absolutely. And there's no one right way.
No,
And whatever you choose may not be your thing forever, but explore it and use it for as long as it serves you. And then you'll evolve and you'll move on to the next version.
I love that.
Well, is there anything that you're really into, anything else you're really into kind of in the health and wellness or spiritual space right now? It's kind of caught your eye recently?
I think that we will continue to hear a lot about nervous system regulation. So we have our autonomic nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system can either exist in our sympathetic response, in its sympathetic response, so fight, flight, freeze, or parasympathetic response, which is rest, digest. And the body is totally fine to exist in a stress state for short periods of time. But what's happened now is that people are like perma stressed, and that perma stress starts to create anxiety disorders, sleep disorders, skin problems, digestive upset, kills the microbiome in our digestive system. And so I'm seeing a lot of emphasis and a lot more dialogue around the importance of reducing cortisol and stress and existing in that space of rest, digest, or the parasympathetic response a lot more. And I'm really happy about that because I don't think people were talking about it for a long time. And we were just okay with kind of perpetually being stressed, burnt out, anxious. So I think that what I would suggest is people look at their toolkit as well and think about what are the things that help me feel more rested and more relaxed. When we're in the stressed out state, we can't hear our body. We aren't in tune with hunger and fullness cues because they're not really turned on. We're in a state of fleeing the perceived tiger or lion. So as you move back into a state of rest, digest, you'll be able to hear when you need food and when you're full. You'll be able to tell when it's time to sleep, and you'll actually be able to fall asleep and get a deep, restful REM sleep. So I think that's definitely an interesting topic. I mean, there's just so many things. I'm always curious about, like the new lights that are coming out, whether it's red light therapy or saunas, cold plunging, NAD supplements. But I don't know, you've probably experienced the same thing. After 20 years of being in this space, you start to realize like there's always going to be this next new thing. And it feels more important amidst all of that to keep coming back to the foundation of being mindful of sleep and movement and what you're putting in your body. And the rest is all extra. The rest are all nice to haves. They're not necessarily needs for the most part, for 98% of the population.
And they're there as a tool when you need it. So I think a lot of these amazing frequency and light machines that are coming to the market are great tools in times of imbalance in our body. But they're not necessarily meant to be used every single day or every week. But, you know, I think we'll evolve into that too.
I just hope that everybody who's listening after hearing this podcast episode can just remember that you are enough exactly as you are in this moment. You are right where you need to be. You can take a deep breath and stop trying to be anything other than the person that you are, because truly that version of you is so deserving of love and kindness and compassion. That doesn't mean that you can't care for yourself. It doesn't mean that you can't, I don't know, whatever, try various things, whether it's for beauty or wellness. But if we start by building a foundation of self-love, then everything that we try or that we put on top of that, if it works or it doesn't work, it doesn't matter because we already know that we're enough. I think a lot of people are trying all of these things, hoping to find that foundation of self-love. But that's something that's built from the inside. It's not something that any supplement or any diet plan or cleanse or workout could ever give you. It starts from within.
Absolutely. Well, where can people continue to learn from you and connect with you and find food freedom?
Well, I would love to hear from anybody who's listened to this episode. If it resonated, just on Instagram at Raw Beauty Talks is the best place. And then I'll make sure that I send you that 5 steps to end or 5 steps to find food freedom training so that people can watch that anytime that it works for them. Can you put that in your show notes or
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, amazing. I think that's a great place for people to start.
Perfect. And could you maybe leave our listener with just like one last health or wellness tip that they could consider adding into their life?
The first thing that's coming to mind is just be kinder to yourself. Speak to yourself like you would to a friend. Notice when that inner mean girl is getting loud, and rather than judging her, I shouldn't talk to myself this way, or like I'm being hard on myself, blah, blah, blah. Erin says I shouldn't do that. It's like, no, just meet her where she's at as well. Acknowledge that she's probably trying to protect you from something, and let her know it's all good. You're okay just as you are. You are enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And get more sleep and maybe and give the brain what it needs, which might be more sleep in that moment.
Exactly. Exactly. What's that saying? If you are angry at everyone, you probably need food. If you think everyone's angry at you, you probably need sleep.
Perfect. So more good food and more good sleep.
Exactly. The recipe for success in life.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And it was such a treat to connect with you. I really appreciate your time and just everything that you're sharing.
Thank you, Whitney. It was such a pleasure meeting you too.